Hello everybody, Happy New Year. Figured I'd do a little fun video now that we finished our annual Wrestling with St. Nick. If you don't know who St. Nick is my little pet name for Nicolaes Petter, who was a German-born wine merchant in the 1600s. And he was known as a very strong wrestler. And in his treatise, The Magnificent Art of Wrestling, he also has a very small knife section. Now his knife section kind of differs from everything else in the book in that, I'm going to be honest, a lot of Nick's stuff gets a little bit bullshito. I mean, I can understand how it might work, but some of it gets a little bit crazy. It could have been the way it was written. It could have been, who knows. But his knife stuff, however, entirely different. It goes straight down into pretty practical, straightforward, really kind of mean too. And it is also against a knife, not a dagger, which is intriguing. As well as the person that is doing it to him changes. So whereas before it was all guys of equal clothing going against each other, you know, nice clothing to sell you better copies. In this, my assailant suddenly is dressed, well, the opposite of what Jared is right now. He's dressed very poorly, much more like someone who would actually mug you on the street. Now, what kind of knife are we talking about? Jared, go ahead and hand me the knife. So this is kind of what we're looking at. It's just a little pen knife with a little sheath, nothing too crazy. And specifically, he makes the mention that someone is going to reach into their pocket for it. I don't know if this was perhaps due to legal stuff about having it hanging off your person and it being too easy to draw. Makes sense, but it would kind of be the same as, you know, having a flip knife. There's that tempo to take it out, which is kind of intriguing. And that doesn't really appear in a lot of the other stuff. But it's about that size, single-edged cutting knife, you know, something you'd have on the trail. So, our very first technique is pretty hilarious. So, he goes ahead and takes this side. So here, Jared is here, go ahead and get a little closer, and I am worried that he might be about to draw. What I am instructed to do is to step hard on his foot and then punch him in the face. Now, of course, you know, one punch is not going to solve the issue, but it does give us some ideas as to, you know, avoiding getting stabbed. So he does have to take the tempo to reach back. If I were to just punch him, Jared can yield back, run away, and get that knife out. He can create distance. If I step onto his foot, he can't. I'm going to get that punch into his nose, most likely. If he defends with his other arm, I have my other fist. Is that the end of the fight? It's the end of the plate, but odds are if I'm dealing with Jared, the assailant here, it's probably, let's go ahead and start here. It's probably going to look something a little bit like this. Whoa, hey, boom, run. Yeah. And he does say to stamp, and with the shoes at the time, that's gonna suck. The second technique takes place on the other side, so the plate flips their positions. I believe this is because if I'm standing on this side of him, I still can do the same thing, but it's gonna be with my left arm, so he's probably going off of punching with your stronger arm, and also he's now closer to reaching for his weapon, and there's a better option. So he's taking the time to reach back into his pocket, as you can see, to pull out the knife, which he then has to draw. This creates, turn a little bit, this creates this shape. I'm gonna fill that shape with my left hand as I step up close to him. So, Jared reaches back, fill in, turn, lock this to my shoulder. Now at this point, even if he got the knife out, which, yeah he did, he can't draw it, because it's still in its sheath. And I can deliver knees to the head, or bring us to the ground, or just crank on his arm until I'm happy. So we'll show that again. Once again, scenario over here. Whoa. Just right there. Our third scenario, he has now gotten the knife out but still needs to draw it. And the actual picture, he has the sheath in one hand and is pulling it out about like that. So we're in kind of a middle-ish position because he has to bring it to his other hand. So right about here. So what I am going to do, go ahead and switch places with me. What I'm going to do, get close to the camera. I am going to take my hands and I'm going to put both thumbs going same direction right about here. So my right hand is right here, left hand here. I've got both on the forearm right there. Now, what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to turn into it and bring him up onto my shoulder for an arm break. So he goes to pull at me, grab, twist around, bring that hard onto the shoulder, and break. Now, the footwork here specifically, I'm keeping my left foot where it is, and I'm turning with a small circle step and partially pulling Jared onto me, so that way I get the maximum amount of his body weight onto that one joint as I break the arm. So let's do that a little bit more fluidly. Once again, mugging situation. Right. This is the mugging corner, Jared. What do you think? So he's pulled it out. Oh no. Grab. Break. Now, we also have if his arm doesn't break, so maybe you entered in too closely, or maybe he's resisting, something along those lines. Because Nicolaes does show this in just his standard wrestling before, and he shows us a counter to get out of it. So he was anticipating this as being a thing. He says instead to keep twisting and transfer it to your other shoulder. And we'll do this nice and slow on Jared here. So he pulls out the knife, goes to draw it, I grab, I get it to here. Now, go ahead and step up a little bit with me. He's struggling / he's not breaking. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep rolling and roll it onto my other shoulder, which puts my back fully against Jarrett. And I've got him in an ude garame, basically. So his arm is doing that right now. I can definitely ruin his rotator cuff from there. So that one's already fine. I won't do that at full speed because I don't want to break Jarrett. But our next one comes from he has drawn out the weapon and is now going to go for a slash at me. So he's drawn it, and he's looking to do this downward cut onto my face. Okay. So what Nicolaes says for us to do is to grab his hand with our left hand, and his picture does show thumb down, though I've had some people show interpretations of thumb up. A general note on dealing with downward attacks. If you get them in the tempo of them pulling back, thumb up is fine, but when they're coming down, you want the thumb down so that way it doesn't break, or conversely, they'll just cut the outside of your arm. But go ahead and step a little bit forward, Jared. Jared pulls out, and he goes to slash me. I'm going to catch, and I'm going to grab hold of the cloth of his elbow here. Now, what I'm going to do is it says to yank it to, well, not yank, wrench outward. So I'm going to wrench it slightly to the inside, which again starts to compromise this. I'm going to then fold it over the back, which as we can see compromises the structure due to pain. So I'll show that on the other side. Once again, mugging situation. Right? You're mugging me a lot today, Jared. There's something you want to tell me? So I grab, right, hopefully not dying. I get this, turn in, back, take him to the ground. Now the other scenario is that he goes and pulls it out, and I'm a little bit faster on it, but instead of taking the grip I took before, I'm going to take a slightly wider grip, and this one gets kind of nutty, but is also really awesome. So he's pulled it out, and we're here. I'm going to grab so that I have this arm a little bit more underneath, kind of at the crux of his elbow, and what Nicolaes says to do is to pull it to your chest and push in, which threatens him with his own knife. Now doing this at speed, because Jared and I have been warming up with this, it's pretty bloody effective. So he goes for that. It's in him. In fact, it's kind of hard for me to prevent it from going into him. But in case he resists, right, what his most likely response to do is to lean back like he was doing, because, sharp thing. So what Nicolaes says to do is to take out his leg. And he will end up going, most likely with the knife going into him. So we'll show that one now. In that case, I got all of them. Now, his final technique. This is where I guess the practicality ended and I started to get a little bit bullshit-y. Though, I will point out that given the clothing at the time, I could understand this working. So, with no further ado, let's just go ahead and show it. So, Jared has drawn his knife and is menacing me. What I'm going to do is I'm told to keep an erect posture and be ready and kick that out of his hand. Now, what are the odds of this actually working? I don't know. But he's very clearly kicking with the toe of his boot right into the crux of the hand right here. That certainly doesn't feel good. I'm sure if you practice kicking rather hard, and the kick is not particularly small either, it's way up there. But could it get to fly out of his hand? Yeah, maybe. Could he also just dodge it and cut you in the leg? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's probably the one technique that I really, really don't feel too good about. But beyond that, the others make a lot of sense, and they work out pretty well. So, otherwise though, that's Nicolaes Petter's knife defense. Thank you very much to Jarrett for mugging and letting me abuse him. And otherwise, we'll go over some other techniques another time.